with this one, I'm trying something new. I want to start this new series called my meditation series. Not the That shouldn't be confused with the literal definition of meditating or meditation. The reason I use that term is because it's from a Roman philosopher named Marcus Aurelius. He was known for being one of the main philosophers in the philosophic school known as Stoicism. He was also one of the emperors of Rome back in his day. And he had this daily tradition in which he would write in a journal, and he labeled these journals his various meditations because I guess he considered his specific thoughts and feelings about specific subjects and what he thought on them deeply as his meditations. And I wanted to do something similar. Not that I'm comparable to a ancient philosopher or, God forbid, a Roman emperor, but I still thought the concept was interesting, and sometimes I think really deeply about certain subjects and thought maybe it would be interesting if I recorded it for YouTube. This is that solo series I was thinking about doing. My last episode that I had with Lyric Carpet about gaming, actually. And I think I talked about it the previous episode, my Shooting the Shit episode with Jake and Badger, but that's what I'm going to try to do today. And to start, best way I can get into it is I have been thinking a lot about how I've been paying the idiot's tax, or the fool's tax, is what a lot of people keep calling it. It's the lottery. I've been participating in the Powerball lottery even though I know mathematically it is so unlikely for me to win, and I think I'm starting to get over it now, but I developed a very quick obsession with it, and I think a lot of that's because I've been abnormally lucky my entire life, especially in video games. You can ask a lot of the members of my friend group that I have on the podcast often. They know when it comes to random dice rolls or random number crunches, I normally come out on top more than not. And so one day, when I was thinking about my future and my current financial situation about a month ago, I'd say, I thought it might be a good idea to try to play the lottery. That was stupid. I didn't win. And ever since, I've been buying 3 lottery tickets a week, hoping I'll win. Of course, I haven't been, because it's so godly unlucky to win or not unlucky, it's so godly unlikely to win the lottery that, like, it's not even... I mean, that's why it's a fool's tax, right? Because you're a fool if you think you can win it, but I still find myself buying 3 tickets every week, because what if? What if I won the lottery? And that really got me thinking, because for the first week, while I was waiting for the numbers to be pulled for the first time, because nobody in my family had ever done the lottery, not that I knew of, nobody ever really showed me how it worked, I kind of just figured it out, and leading up to the numbers being pulled for that first lottery ticket I bought, I would find myself fantasizing about what would I do if I won the lottery. And what was kind of cool, a little bit, was it wasn't totally selfish, a lot of it. A lot of it, and it wasn't altruistic either. I'm actually not a fan of raw altruism, because people generally, in my experience, don't just help people to help people. Generally, there's a reason behind it. But I would say a lot of it was anxiety-based. When I first bought the lottery ticket, I made a bad financial investment in a snowblower, actually. And living in the region I do, most people snowblow their own driveways in the winter, so I was out about $1,000 that I really needed, that I thought I'd be making back and did not. And the anxiety behind that, and the anxiety behind constantly feeling like I'm losing time all the time. It was within the last year of my life that I went from somebody who'd be completely content with just having a stable supply of food and video games, and that be my whole life, to somebody who can't sleep at night if he didn't get enough productive things done throughout the day. I think it was a combination of watching Jordan Peterson lectures and delving into various philosophies like objectivism and Ayn Rand's books and Joe Rogan's podcasts, and God knows what else I watch. There's this Stoicism YouTuber named Einzelganger. So many different people that showed me the best way to manage my anxiety problems, because I've been plagued with anxiety problems since middle school, I'd say, was to kind of exercise them out a little bit. That literally with exercise and too with productivity. There was a point in my life that I realized my anxiety didn't exist for no reason, like therapists would tell me, or like friends would tell me, or like my family would tell me. That it existed because if I sat on my ass all day and didn't do anything with my life like I did for almost 20 years, then what self-worth did I have? And my anxiety was trying to tell me, my subconscious was trying to tell me that I'm wasting my life away and that I've got a finite amount of time. And come back full circle to the lottery, if I were to win the lottery and make all of that money, that would save me a lot of time that I could dedicate to better, more productive things. And when I say that, to elaborate more on that, I think about how much time I spend at work, for instance. I work in an entry-level job. There's nothing inherently too much wrong with my job other than the fact that you don't really have to be a special person to do it. And that's because I'm not inherently that special of a person, at least not yet. The lack thereof of special skills and the lack thereof of a college degree is probably the main reason this is all I can do for right now, which I'm trying to work on and fix. But it's because of that it leads to a type of work that kind of feels like you're wasting your time all day long. I mean, all day. What I will disclose is I work in retail, and yeah, it pays pretty well compared to other starting positions around my area, but the problem is that's 8 to 9 hours a day that I kind of didn't get anything done for myself other than making money. Now, the money's necessary and it needs to happen, but losing 8 to 9 hours every day, losing basically half of my day every day, and having to stay up ridiculously late every night to get my homework done and my working out done and my social life taken care of it takes its toll over a certain period of time. I think the average person who doesn't have productivity-based anxiety doesn't really have this problem. I don't think they're constantly worried about their finite existence. I don't think they constantly have these existential problems all the time, and I don't think working a normal job inherently fucks with them that bad. I have a lot of disagreements with Badger about this kind of stuff because he feels like the vast majority of the population can work a normal clock in, clock out job, while I think human beings are meant for more, personally. I know I am. I know this isn't healthy for me mentally to clock in, clock out, and not really progress myself all day long. To work for somebody else's bottom line all day long every day is just, it's crippling. Even when I get paid for it, because of how time consuming it is definitely, it takes its toll. And then on top of that, my bosses have gotten a little not a little, a lot more strict with making sure you can't have your earbuds or any distractions while you work, and the amount of existential dread I have when I have to go 8 to 9 hours of just being in my head doing drone work is terrifying. There's just no better word for it than terrifying. There was less than a year ago I could sit and not give a shit about passing time and not be anxious and just be content with the moment and content with having nothing to do and no self-worth, because if I wasn't hungry and if I wasn't scared, if I didn't have problems, I was content, I was happy with that kind of existence. And now I'm just completely different, 100% different, and it's hard for me existentially to a certain extent because I'm just a different person now altogether, and a lot of the holes I dug myself when I wasn't who I am now, I'm trying to climb out of now. Whether that be finding different employment or trying to make more money or win the lottery, which would save me a lot of time and immediately make me financially free and make me just my own boss off the bat. I mean, that's the goal, I guess. It's not like I just bank on the lottery every week, but I'm compelled to buy these tickets every week to ensure that what if I were to win this, that the chances of winning this vastly outweigh the $6 I pay every week for them, is my rationalization. $6 isn't very much in the grand scheme of how much money I make, and if I were to win $200 million I would. It's not that I wouldn't work. I would be a very productive individual. I just wouldn't work for anybody else ever again. I would never do drone work ever again. I would only work for me. And I guess that's a big part of why my fascination with the lottery ever happened to begin with. I'm very ambitious now, and the lottery would just be the ultimate shortcut to getting to the end of my goal. I would take that money, and not only would I invest it in things like real estate and stocks and other forms of investments that I would use to make more money than what I won, I would also invest in various friends. I come from a very entrepreneurial group of people. Uh, a very entrepreneurial group of people, and that's where it's more altruistic. But I would never just give people money. They would have to come to me with some of my closest friends that I consider family. I would expect them to come to me with a business plan, something that could potentially make more money to support themselves and to support a small royalty I would place on their profits. And then I would make them all self-made men and women too. And I don't know why, but I fantasize about that almost just as much as I fantasize about what I would use the money to improve my own life with, constantly. And what's interesting is almost every one of them has a specific entrepreneurial venture or goal that they want to reach that if I were to win the lottery I could help with. And yeah, I mean, and part of what started this more anxious fear of losing time aspect of me that I've been dealing with and seeing more and more often in my personality and in my character traits is it started when I was on Christmas break, actually, of my freshman year of college, I believe. Yeah. Because I work in retail, we've got one of these massive parking lots in which you have to assign cart pushers to go out, get all of the grocery carts from the cart corrals and bring them back to these side garages, and so that they can be re-added to the cycle for customers to come grab them and then restart the process again. And I tell you what, there's few things, like, I have a great deal of respect for these cart pushers who do this shit year round, because when I was doing it, to struggle and pull and just destroy your body sitting on asphalt all day long to pull in one of these massive rows of carts just to watch it disappear within minutes, to have to go do it again for 8 to 9 hours a day, that is soul crushing. I think what my job is now kind of like depresses me and makes me feel like I don't have enough self-worth. Cart pushing is a completely different animal. And plenty of my coworkers do it year round, constantly, and I have a great deal of respect for them to be able to do that. But I had to work the night shift while I was doing that too. Not overnight, but later on at night when it was dark out, and I did this for about a month of my college winter break, and I listened to audiobooks the entire time. Believe it or not, the management and supervisors don't really manage the cart pushers, therefore they were not really out there to make you take your earbuds out. But I listened to audiobooks the entire time, and I got into an author called Ayn Rand. Most people on the left end of the spectrum don't like her very much, and a lot of more moderate people in the middle don't like her either. A lot of people attribute the philosophical school of objectivism to a zero-sum game, meaning it's a philosophy that teaches there's one winner and there's one loser, and that's it. You can't both win mutually, and you can't both prosper mutually. There has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. One person takes all the wealth. And that's a big argument I have with Shark, who's been on a few of the past episodes. Anthony, it's funny, the man's worked at a bookstore. He spends so much time in academia, and that's a career he wants to pursue, is one in academia, and he straight up told me he wouldn't read books by this author because it was a philosophy that didn't agree with his political opinions. And I facepalmed kind of hard at that one, because I feel like liberals, or at least classical liberalism, and how it's supposed to focus on freedom of thought and freedom of speech, would be some of the most open-minded individuals ever and it's just so opposite. And don't get me wrong, conservatives on the right end of the spectrum are just as close-minded to their own stuff. It's just people who run in the middle are few and far between, or at least they are when you're my age. But I did eventually convince Anthony Daring Shark to read a book by her, and we still haven't quite sat down and talked about that in depth yet. I got to do that with him soon. But it was interesting, and he actually enjoyed the entertainment value of the book because she wrote a good story, Ayn Rand. It just even if he disagreed with the politics, I got him to take a more moderate view and actually enjoy the content of the book, and I thought that was great. That's great character development on his part. Um, but in these books written by Ayn Rand, one specifically called The Fountainhead, it's about an architect, and he starts designing modern architecture in I think the late 1800s, like kind of the stuff you see on the coast, like in California and in Silicon Valley, like what the Google headquarters looks like. He starts designing that kind of stuff in the late 1800s, and people think it's just disgusting. The vast community of architects throw him down and kick him out, and they try to disrupt his ongoings, and society disrupts him and hates on him, and eventually at the end of the book he breaks through and gets to build his own structures and support himself financially, and people finally open up to his ideas because he was so believing in his own ideas and didn't care about other people's opinions. He cared only for the contents of his own mind and his individualism, that he eventually endured and came out on top. And the whole point of the book was, for Ayn Rand, it was actually a tribute to her husband, Frank O'Connor. She wanted to write a book about what she idealized to be the perfect man. And I don't agree with everything the main character did, the main character's name being Howard Rourke. I don't agree with all of objectivism's philosophy. I think agreeing with anything 100% that's the contents of somebody else's mind makes you an ideologue, which makes you an idiot. But there are aspects of Stoicism and objectivism that I see in Ayn Rand's main characters and her other books as well that really woke me up. That paired with Jordan Peterson's teachings that I see on YouTube that I started watching a few years ago, actually, I'd say, it really showed me that regardless of how unfair the world is, regardless of how much I feel entitled, regardless of how much I think things should just be given to me, I realized that the power to make changes is in me. And I've started doing that since then. I've made lots of changes. I've become far more individualistic. I've become far more independent. And even though I'm still working at the same place, I'm doing a much different, much higher paying job now. It was actually, this book was a huge part of why I quit college football, come to think of it. Not this specific book, but the various teachings I've come in contact with that have formed my own philosophy now. This fear of running out of time made it so I definitely was not going to find myself spending 4 years playing college football and possibly 6 going into ridiculous amounts of debt where I was going to school, because it not only was it a waste of time, it was counterproductive and it would have sent me backwards. I was also pursuing a psychological degree, or a psychology degree, which it's not that I don't find it fascinating, and it's not that I wouldn't love doing work in that field, it's that it frankly just doesn't pay enough money to do what I want to do. I've grown too ambitious for even that now. So I came back home, started going to a local college instead, and I'm taking steps to constantly increase my pay, possibly find a job somewhere else that has more fulfilling work, and make more money, and eventually move out and be independent and continue striving forward till eventually I can buy real estate and do things the way I want to do it. So that eventually I can be my own boss. And to circle everything back to the lottery, that's why I would want to win the lottery. It's not that I feel entitled to it, because I don't. There's actually a great deal of guilt that would come if I won the lottery. A great deal of guilt. Which is part of why I would invest so much in my friends. Because if I could become a fully self-sufficient, independent individual overnight like that, and not spread the wealth to those I love, but not do it in my... I'm a strong believer in teaching a man to fish rather than giving them fish. So even though it's a great deal of money I don't think I'd accomplish anything just by giving people money. I think I'd have to invest into their various business ventures so that they could be self-made men. I think that's the only way that they would really respect the amount of money I would give them, and it's the only way that it wouldn't be a zero-sum game. It's the only way that they don't just take from me, even though they didn't earn it. And I know whether or not I earned that theoretical money is in question anyway. But it's a way that they don't just take from me without earning it, and a way that I can still give without losing it all. And that's true objectivism, I believe. Help others so you can help yourself. You want to help your community so that you can live in a better community. You want to give to the poor and teach the poor so that they can eventually become productive members of society and either work for you or compete with you, or you can work for them. It's the better other people do in society, the better you do as well, and that's objectivism. And that's not how most people look at it. There's altruism in selfishness, and it's fascinating, but most people don't look at it that way. But in her other various books, it's all great individuals who have to fight the system and overcome the system and have to hold on to their individuality as a more collectivistic, more growing monster of a society continues to want to take all of their wealth that they built themselves and want to repossess everything they've ever made themselves. It's in these characters that Ayn Rand has created that I found my individuality and a romanticism for that type of human spirit. I had this conversation with Anthony in my Edenism episode where to explain that real quick, it's where we tried to talk about a potential technological utopia that humanity could eventually reach in the relatively near future. When you think about how long the universe has existed, we could probably reach this in like a million years. But the problem is we quickly found out while I was talking to Anthony Daring Shark, Joe, Shaggy, and Honey Badger, was that in this utopia where humans have nothing to do or nothing they need to do, nothing they need to strive for, that's the ultimate dystopia. Even for Anthony's communist collectivism and even for my capitalistic individualism, it's a hell for both of us. And so I guess to tie that back to the lottery, I'd have to make sure that I always have something challenging. I could always throw money at every situation, but I would definitely have to challenge myself with growing that money and making a long-lasting impression on our society and our civilization as a whole with that kind of funding, to ensure that I don't just make a dystopian utopia out of it. I mean, this is the kind of shit I lie awake and think about at night instead of sleeping like I need to, because I have work at 5 in the morning tomorrow. But it's because of this type of human nature that I discussed with Anthony. It's the difference between me and him. I find all of humanity's greatness, all of humanity's spirit in the individualistic, selfish, yet mutual spirit of the human being. While he finds it in the cooperative, collectivistic, unified version of the human being. He thinks the pinnacle of humanity is a group of people coming together to survive and overtake insurmountable odds, to show the testament of human strength when we work together, while I think mine is the individual who can stand against the collective and maintain his individuality and play the system to its advantage to maintain who he is, because who he is all he really cares about. And I want to win the lottery because I think it's the quickest, fastest shortcut to starting to do those kind of things. It's not like I've put my plans or my ambitions aside to just to play the lottery all the time. I have the lottery going on in the background, but it's still always on my mind though, all the time. I don't know if I'd call it an addiction. It's more of a fear of, if I didn't buy those lottery tickets, what if the person waiting in line behind me did and won? It's more of a now that I'm playing the game, if I were to stop, what are the chances that somebody would win as soon as I stop? That kind of missed opportunity it'd kill me. And so it's interesting to say the least. That's for sure. But I guess the conclusion of this entire meditation about the lottery is I want to use it to save time. All the time it's going to take me to become financially independent enough that I'm self-employed and that I no longer have to work for other people and that I no longer have to worry about society, really, because once you enter the 1%, once you have enough money, there's a certain point where you no longer have to conform to society because there's no consequences. A lot of us have to conform to society because if you don't, you lose your job. If you don't, you lack the chance to get a promotion. You lack the chance to get a new job that's better. You lack the chance to potentially attract a girlfriend or boyfriend. You lack the chance to opportunities fly by if you don't network properly and you don't listen to the social rules properly. But when you're in the 1%, when you have that much money, you're just totally free. And I guess when you're as individualistic as I am, that kind of freedom is so alluring and it's so addictive to even think about, let alone actually obtain, that I guess I'm going to play the lottery until I do obtain it on my own. Because I don't doubt that I'm going to obtain some sort of financial independence on my own at some point. That's not in question. It's just about whether or not I'm going to do it tomorrow when the numbers are announced, or if I'm going to do it 10 years from now when I finally acquire enough credit and money to start investing in real estate, and then go another 10 years to grow that real estate into an empire that can actually sustain itself, that I don't have to work 2 jobs to maintain. But for my friends who think I'm just an addict and have a gambling problem, and my girlfriend who thinks I have a god complex of how lucky I am, and my family who thinks I'm a victim, and myself who feels guilty that I would take a handout like that, it's just to save time. And with that, that's meditation number 1, the lottery.